my friends, welcome to the stream. Today, damn, I wanted to change this. This was bugging me the last one. Let me just do that on the fly. If there's some sounds, I apologize. Welcome to the stream. Today is a special day for me as my podcast turns... How are we going to do this? I'm sorry. This was bound to happen. As my podcast turns 1 year old today, exactly on the 5th of February 2020 was the first episode. So it's good. So I'm gonna celebrate that today. I'm just looking out the window. The neighbors got some stuff delivered, and there was like furniture, and it was like really loud, and I was this is better. And I was wondering if that was gonna disturb the podcast, but it looks like they are moving off. They've delivered everything, so that should be good. I have to warn you ahead of time. It could be that I have to stop and get up. We are expecting quite a few deliveries today, so some of those could come during the podcast. I will, of course, fix that in the podcast itself in post, but on stream, obviously, you will have a short break, which I hope is going to be okay. Right, usual disclaimer, as I am recording a podcast here, I will be, I always keep an eye on Twitch chat, but I will not react to it as I do during other streams, as you might be used to it, because as I'm recording, this starts well, I need coffee. As I'm recording a podcast, I want the experience to be tailored to the podcast audio-only audience, which obviously doesn't have Twitch chat. So that, I will keep an eye on it. If there's some, usually if I am talking about a topic or something, I'll weave that in. I don't know about today. Today I'm answering some AMA-style questions that I've got from my subscribers, the people who support the show. So I will, I'm just answering personal questions, so I don't know if you have comments on that, and if they are relevant, I will, of course, pick them up. I will not take any more questions. I've got 22 questions, and this was kind of a feature for the people who monetarily support the show, that they could ask me the questions, so I will not take any more questions than those today. But other than that, you're very welcome to be here and watch me answer them. And I'm just gonna see if this coffee is ready. I just made myself some coffee. That was the little break before the show. I realized I went live and I was like, I'm on time. I've got everything sorted out. And I was like, fuck, I didn't make myself any coffee. So I'd have to do that. And it always takes a bit because I always hand grind my coffee for my French press. Because I just love freshly ground coffee in a French press, and I don't like electronical grinders. They're very loud, and they don't last long. So I have a very, it wasn't cheap, but a simple hand grinder, and I'm on the second one of those. It's like a ceramic burr grinder. The first one we completely wore the grinding bit completely out, but that lasted, I don't know, 6-7 years, and now I'm on my second one. So that's how I make my coffee. It takes a bit, but it is nice. Anyway, let's get this all set up. Let's see if everything's working. Do a little test recording here. Everything's armed? That's important. Start recording. Zoom in maybe a bit. That is looking good. What's wrong with my microphone setup today? I'm not feeling comfortable, which is nice. Okay, we got that.
It's a great time to be a podcaster.
So that seems to work. Shock horror. See if that works. Yep. Okay. But what's wrong with my microphone setup today? I'm not feeling comfortable, which is nice. Okay, we got that. Yeah. So everything everything is working, we can get the show on the road. Right, settle in. Let's record a podcast. Second episode this week. Bit of a special week, but let us do this. Here we go. Right. Hello everybody and welcome to The Private Citizen. You're listening to episode 55 for Friday, the 5th of February 2021. 1 year anniversary. Hello everybody, nice to have you. Nice for you to listen to the show. It is a very special show for me today. Because the show today, on the 5th of February, is exactly 1 year old. 1 year ago, I, recorded and uploaded the very first episode of Private Citizen, which is something I want to celebrate today. Not only that the podcast is a year old, which is amazing to me. It doesn't feel that old yet. But also that, as you can tell, this is the 55th episode. So I did 54 in a year, which is more than, the 52 weeks a year normally has. So I reached my goal to release an episode a week. As I said when I started the show, it's not really an episode every single week because, it took some breaks. But I recorded some extra episodes, like the very one I'm doing right now, and made up for it. So on average, I did an episode a week. And that is something I'm proud of, I gotta say. I don't say this often. But I'm proud of this because, doing a podcast on your own is not easy, and doing a podcast at all isn't easy, especially if you want to do it regularly and doing it on your own every single week. I'm quite happy that I made it. So today, because this is a special episode, we are doing something special. I had announced this, I think, last week. We are doing an AMA, and if you don't know what that is, that's okay. It's internet slang. It's I think originated on Reddit. It means ask me anything. It's a style of questionnaire where people ask other people, often celebrities or something, people that are well known, questions, and you are free to ask anything you want, and the understanding is that the person answering it basically pretty much answers any of the questions. And we're doing exactly that. I asked the people, we have a Discord server. Links are on the page. All these questions are also on the page. The show notes this time are a little bit different than usual, but they are on privatecitizen.press. Of course, the answers won't be. But I asked the people in our Discord server, there's a link, we have a special channel for the subscribers, the Patreon subscribers and the Twitch subscribers that only those have access to as a little bonus for supporting the show monetarily. And I asked them in there, do you want to ask me some questions? And I have a list of 22 questions that I've seen, of course, but I haven't really thought about much. Not because I'm lazy. Well, I am a bit lazy, but. No, I haven't thought about it so much, mostly because I want to preserve a little bit of off-the-cuffness here. I think it's interesting. Some of these questions are quite hard to answer, I feel, and it might. I think they're more truthful if I answer them directly, and you get to hear the process and you get me thinking about them a bit. So this also might take a while because they're 22. I don't want to rush through them. I want to give them the time they deserved, the answers. But I also got to think about some of these, so might take some time. So settle in, I would say. So let's do that. Let's get into the questions. Right, as I said, these are from the people who support the show monetarily. As I always say, everybody, all of you are, you're listeners if you listen to this, but you might quickly graduate to become a producer if you send some feedback, which we, by the way, won't have any on this show because it's a special kind of show. I won't answer any feedback because I'm also answering a lot today already. But of course, you can always send feedback and I will read it, and I will actually read out quite a lot of it on the show and respond to it. And if you do that, you're already a producer. If you send me some links, some interesting stuff, if you recommend some kind of topic you want me to talk about, you're a producer. But then there are also these people who, attach some monetary value to the show and then give some of that back on the value for value model. And to give them a little bit special incentive, of course, there's this Discord channel, which was very quiet for the first. I mean, it hasn't been around for a year, but it's generally very quiet. Usually people just talk in the normal Discord rooms, but I just wanted to give people, the ability to do this. Give these people who've supported me. A lot of them, I talked about that on the previous show. A lot of them throughout. Some of them for the whole year. A lot of them have just, come in at some point and then stayed and supported the show, which I appreciate very much. So I wanted to give them something special. So let's, without further ado and without further rambling, let's get into these questions. Get into the AMA. So the first question is, so I haven't written down who asked these. I guess you will know. Some of these, one or two questions were also doubled up, so I basically put them together as one question. So what's your favorite beer? Now that is a relatively easy question, but I want to preface my answer with the point that I make. A few years ago, I made a conscious effort to try many beers, and I will go out of my way if I'm in the supermarket and if in the beer. Most people just buy the beer that they always buy, and I want to try new beer. So whenever I'm in the beer corner of a supermarket, I will try to pick something I haven't drunk before, or something new, or something I haven't drunk in a long time. So I make it my kind of one of my missions is to try every possible beer. That said, my personal favorite beer, I love Pilsner. Pilsner is probably, I drink all kinds of styles of beer. I love them all. I enjoyed ale a lot when I was in the UK. Now in Germany, ale is very hard to get. But my default, my favorite style of beer is Pilsner. And my favorite Pilsner is Radeberger. I love Radeberger. It's just the perfect Pilsner to me. Pilsner Urquell comes close, but I think I prefer Radeberger. Now, there is a little caveat. Everybody grew up in a place, and people like beer will usually have beer from their home area that they're very fond of. And I have one of those, and that might probably be my favorite beer. Radeberger is my favorite beer as far as the actual taste, and it's actual, I think, my favorite taste of beer. But then there's also König Pilsner, which is from the town I was born in, Duisburg, which I know, now in Düsseldorf. In the intro, I was so happy that the show was going on for a year. I probably didn't introduce myself. Hello, I'm Fab. I host this podcast. I'm Fab. I'm from Germany, and I now live in Düsseldorf. So this show comes to you live from Düsseldorf. Now, I was born just a city further north in Duisburg. And Duisburg has a beer called König Pilsner, which is well known all over Germany, also known as Köpi, which I'm very fond of. Can remember back when my grandpa was alive, who died pretty early in my life. He was in the war, and he was disabled because of a piece of grenade shrapnel that was in his leg from World War II. And he would be able to ride the public transport for free. And he would do that with me when I was like about 6 or something. Back in the day when you were, I think, under 8 as a child, you could also ride for free. So we would ride the public transport just for free. Just hang out and just, go places. And we'd always ride past in Duisburg. So I'm born in the very north of Duisburg. I was born in a very small place called Wehofen. Which is its own district. It's part of Walsum. Most people know Walsum if they know Duisburg. Anyway, so very north of Germany, north of Duisburg, and we would always ride the public transport, towards the south, towards the city center, and you go past Beek, which is another district of the city where this brewery is, König Pilsner Brewery. For the longest time, it used to be a private. I think it's still. Well, it was bought now. I think it was bought by one of the big. I think Bitburger. I don't know, one of the big breweries in Germany. But for the longest time, it used to be private and owned by the family of this guy König, which means king in German. This is his last name. Who founded the brewery. And so I love that beer. I drink that a lot as well. That's my home beer. Like whenever I have nostalgia and I want to feel like, back home, especially when I wasn't living so close to here, like, when I was living in London, or if I could get my hands on it, or if I was living in Hanover or in Hamburg, and whenever I thought of the Ruhr area and my hometown and Schimanski and Götzki Orge, all those things that are connected to Duisburg as steelworks and coal mines, I would drink Köpi, and I still love it. So that is the answer to the first question. Now the second question is, what is your favorite Springsteen album or two? I now find it hard to pick just one, and why? I find it hard to pick just one, and why? So what's your favorite Springsteen album or two, and why? Actually, I have to say two, because so so if you just go regular albums, studio albums, I would have to say Darkness on the Edge of Town, because it is just, I feel, his best album. Most people think his best album is Born to Run. I do like Born to Run, but I think Darkness on the Edge of Town is just my favorite. I love the title song. I love Badlands, which, that's just, getting into an album with that. Actually, let me just look up Darkness on the Edge of Town. I have to look this up because I don't know it by heart. I listen to, Springsteen is one of my favorite artists, and it's just blends together. Sometimes I forgot what songs on what album. I just have to see if Jungleland is on there, which it is it not? It's not. So Badlands, Adam Raised the Cane, I love those songs. So Jungleland's my favorite Springsteen song. So I have to look up what album is that on. Well, I will have to. Oh, that's actually on Born to Run. Ha, see? So that's my favorite song. But generally, my favorite album is Darkness on the Edge of Town. I just love the whole vibe of that. It's very grim, generally. It's got some emotional, like some happy bits to it, some hopeful bits, but it's a very gritty album. It fits, as I was just talking about Duisburg, it fits the town I was growing up in, the time I was growing up in it. I'm born in 83, so growing up to tail end of the 80s, beginning of the 90s, in a steel and mining town, when coal mining was very much on the decline and there was a lot of unemployment. It fits the things Springsteen is singing about as well. Now, my second favorite Springsteen album is the Live 1975 to Live 1985, because Springsteen is best live. Like he's just such a great live performer that listening to Springsteen, you haven't listened to Springsteen if you haven't seen him live. Now, the next best thing is, of course, having a live album, and they're also great, especially has a lot of great DVDs and stuff. But this album is special because it encompasses a 10 years in Springsteen's career where he was very good and had very good live performances, and has pretty much any song on there that you'd want from his early career, and it's just an amazing album. That, like, if I had one album I could take to a deserted island, I would take that one, because it's a 3 CD set. It has a lot of songs on there. It spans the gamut from Springsteen's repertoire, classic Born to Run, the Classic Born to Run, of course, but Classic Born in the USA that everybody knows. 2 songs that people, are not familiar with, like from Nebraska, where they really don't know if you only heard like Born to Run and Born in the USA and Streets of Philadelphia, you really don't know what Springsteen is about. If you want to know, listen to that album. It's amazing. So that would be my second one. My runner-ups would probably be Lucky Town for just the normal studio album, which a lot of people don't like. Springsteen himself doesn't like, so he doesn't play songs from it often. I love that album. It's just like a happy-go-lucky kind of album. And Live in New York City would probably be my runner-up for a live album. That is divine. The version of Jungle Land on that is excellent. It's an excellent version of Lost in the Flood. For when I had my Twingo, I had on the my very very first car, which I had for a very long time and I miss very dearly. I had a Bound for Glory on the back. The back window was completely. There was a huge sticker that I had printed in fonts that I'd made that said Bound for Glory, Bruce Springsteen and E Street Band. So yeah, so that answers that question, I would guess. Number 3, if you were a character in a Star Trek series, what would your name be and what would your crew role be? Bonus points for pinpointing the exact series that you would want to be in. I would want to be in, I think, The Next Generation, because I love that ship. I love the Enterprise D, and I love the people on it. I like Deep Space Nine, but I wouldn't want to live on a fucking Cardassian space station. Especially not in the Dominion War. I like Voyager and the people, but also I wouldn't want to be stuck over in the fucking Delta Quadrant. So it would have to be The Next Generation. I'm sure I would, every Star Trek uniform I've ever owned has been an Ops uniform. So I would be an Ops. I don't see myself as a command person. I would be a bit of a troublemaker in Starfleet. I think I'm not generally good with, I've never been in the military. I got my best to not get drafted into the German military for the compulsory service that you have to do, which some medical issues that weren't really medical issues helped with. And so I would have trouble. That would be one of the reasons if I ever stayed in Starfleet, I would be like Tom Paris, although he is in command division, but I would probably never be good in command division. I would probably be an Ops. I would love to be an engineer. That's what I would want to be, but I'm, if we're talking fab, as in, as I am in real life, I am shitty with taking things. I'm shitty with hardware. I'm much better with software. Like if they had some engineering, some software guru there, that would probably be me. Although I'm also not really a programmer. I think I would be in security. I'm pretty sure I would be in security. I would probably be more buff than I am now. And I think security I would do well. Not only physical security, but also probably they must have some basically IT security people. I think that's who I would be. As to what my name would be, I don't know. Wouldn't it just be a normal name? I guess I would be a human, right? I've no idea. I'm just going with Fabian Scherschel, although they would never put that in a Star Trek series because nobody can pronounce it. The closest ever to my name is actually, I've just finished watching Lower Decks, which is excellent, by the way. It's a cartoon Star Trek series, and I'm normally not into cartoons, but this series is great. It is so much better than Discovery. One of the characters is called Brett Boimler, and Boimler is written with is spelled with an O-I. But I guess it's just an Americanized version of the German name, Boimler, which would be with an umlaut, with an A, actually. But probably that's the closest name that was ever in Star Trek that would come close to my name. Okay, let's. I hope that answers that question. Let's move on. Number 4. Number 4 is, what's your favorite movie? Now, this is relatively easy. Now, we have lots of favorite questions, which are always a go-to for everybody. My favorite movie is The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, which is a spaghetti western made by Sergio Leone, which is the final movie in the Man with No Name trilogy. It's actually in the continuity. It is where it takes place first. It is, in my eyes, the best western ever made. I love westerns. It is a supreme movie. Clint Eastwood in it is just a superhuman. It's just the whole the way these movies were made, and the way it is it focuses on the scenery and the cinematography. I adore that movie. Lee Van Cleef is just amazing. Eli Wallach is just fucking amazing. This is my favorite movie of all time. I love that movie. I cannot tell you how much I love that movie. I've seen it so many times. My wife, Katie, every time we watch it, will fall asleep before the first word is ever uttered in the movie. It's not something. Usually she wakes up when they blow up the bridge. if I haven't, basically escorted her to bed by that time. But yeah, I love that movie. Some other movies I really like are Alien. I'm not a horror movie fan. I don't consider Alien to be a real horror movie. Another one of these jump scary ones. I love that movie. I love what else? The Dread. Like as far as newer movies go, my favorite definitely is Dread. The new version, not the one with Carl Urban. I love that movie. It's great. This is another, I tend to like movies who are a little bit imperfect. I don't like movies who are really expensive and have a huge budget. So if you notice, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly filmed very much with budget restraints, even though Sergio Leone was becoming a superstar back in the day. Alien, very clear, not so much budget constraints, but the way this movie is filmed and the way they portray the alien is, or the xenomorph is, very much down to their limits of special effects, and I love that. I love these movies who do more with your imagination than with special effects. And Dread, the same way. Dread is it has special effects and everything, but it is very limited in the way it is filmed, very limited sets, and so I love it. My favorite Star Trek movie, if we're at Star Trek, is of course First Contact. That is the best Star Trek movie. My favorite book. Now this is hard. I have many. I love reading. I love books. There are many. I would probably say so. My favorite, if you go like book series, would be The Dark Tower by Stephen King, and I think one of the books from there that is probably my favorite book of all time is the fourth novel in that series called Wizard and Glass. I adore that book. And Stephen King is, I don't read many of his other books because I don't like horror. And I mean, his books are not really horror. Most of them are, have horror elements and they're really about something else. But I'm not a fan of a lot of the stuff he writes about. But The Dark Tower is just, to me, it's just a masterpiece. I love it. And Wizard and Glass is just such a good book. Now, second favorite franchise, it might be the favorite, even I can't really decide, is Discworld. I love Discworld. And this, like, if we go on the, desert island kind of thing, you take Discworld because there's just so many more books. Like, if you just take all the Discworld books, you can just survive for the rest of your life. If you're just rereading that, there's just so much difference in there and so much amazing stories. And I love the truth. I mean, I'm a journalist. I think a lot about journalism. I'm not one of these journalists who ended up in the job because, could do anything else. I made a very conscious decision at some point that this would be my life's occupation, and I think about that a lot. And the truth is about journalism, and if you never read a Discworld book, read The Truth. The Truth is the best treatise. I mean, it is a fantasy novel, right? But it is the best treatise on journalism there is. I shit you not. It's better than any other, like any textbook on the subject. It teaches you so much about journalism, about what the ideals are and what the real world is like. Which isn't a coincidence. I mean, Terry Pratchett worked as a journalist because he became a writer fairly late in his life and worked in journalism, kind of like Sapkowski, who wrote the Ritter books, which are also excellent. So that's a great book. And another book which isn't that's definitely my favorite Discworld book, but another one which is great if you just want to read a one-off, Small Gods is probably also one of the best books ever written on religion. It's hilarious. It is hilarious. Like Pratchett's idea of what religion is so real. Like it's completely fantasy, but on the other hand, it is so true and it's so real. That is also a great book. Okay, that was what's your favorite book? I do also like the Expanse series. The first book in the Expanse series is one of my favorite books, but I think I'd have to go with either The Truth by Pratchett or King's Wizard and Glass. Right, number 6, favorite video game and or franchise. Now this is very hard because it changes a lot. It used to be Minecraft for a long time. For a very long time it was Elite. I'm Elite Dangerous. I'm kind of burned out on Elite a little bit. So if you ask me right now, and this is kind of easy to tell because I have like those digital game libraries that tell you how much you play what games. If you ask me right now, it's Battletech. I love Battletech. I love strategy games, and strategy games are my... Sounds weird, but they're my go-to. Like, I need to relax, kind of, especially turn-based strategy games where I can there's no pressure on me, right? If I have pressure on me through my job and what I do, if I want to relax from that, I just fire up a strategy game, something like Civilization or Battletech, and or Stellaris, and I'll just putt around. I love XCOM. XCOM's great, but currently it is Battletech. I just burned out a little bit on Elite. It is very, very likely that I'll go back to Elite probably this year when the SpaceX expansion comes out. And it might become, once again, my favorite game. Elite Dangerous is probably the game I've played most in my life. I've played in excess of 2,000 hours of Elite Dangerous. So I do like that. Civilization is one of my favorite franchises, although I don't think they got better after Civilization 4. That was probably my favorite game. So it's hard. It changes a lot. Now here comes a question that I don't really know how to answer because it's very unspecific. What's your favorite tool? Now, that could of course be software, but it could also be hardware. Yeah, like actual like tools, as in screwdriver. If it's actual tool, I would probably say a good pocket knife. That's what I use most in my life. It's like every you wouldn't believe. Like, people were always skeptical. When I was working in a company, I was always carrying a pocket knife. And it's kind of like in Germany, it's kind of, sometimes it's even illegal depending on what kind of play is on there. But it's like, you're like, why are you carrying a knife? I'm like, are you serious? There's so many situations in your normal life. It's just from opening letters to, I don't know, just things, cutting things off things, cutting loose threads on your clothing. There's so many things, so that would probably be my favorite tool. My favorite software tool? I don't. Well, that's not really software. So I think I'll answer that. We'll have a question later about favorite open source software. I think that's pretty much the same thing because my favorite open source software, I think, is the tool. So I'm gonna move on to number 8, which is easy to answer. Who's your favorite Star Trek captain? Now, Well, it's actually not that easy. Now that I think of it. There's two sides to this question. Just watching him do things, or who do you think is just the best captain in general and you would like to work under? If it's the first one, just as pleasure as a viewer from watching Star Trek series, I would say it's Sisko, because he's just the guy who is most after my own heart, who just says the things he thinks. He just beats Q in the face with his fist, and he just chews people out and just loses his patience and starts shouting at people. There's a great video on YouTube called Sisko shouting at everybody. It's hilarious. Somebody cut all the shouting scenes of Sisko together, and it's just hilarious. My favorite person to be working under, it would probably be Janeway. Like, I would most likely love to be on her ship. I like Picard. Picard is a great guy, but he's very stiff and very, he's just a difficult guy, right? If I on the Enterprise D, if I was working there, I'd be hanging out with Riker. Right, Riker is a great guy and seems like to be like a great commander, a great guy to be working under, but also a great guy to have some fun with on off hours, which Picard isn't, and he's also sometimes really hard to work under. Janeway is just, I think, probably the best Starfleet captain. She is. She encourages people when she has to be. She's strict when she has to be. She's a human being. And she loves coffee, which is like a bonus because I love coffee as much as she does. We'd be meeting every morning and begging Neelix to make more coffee, because the replicators are off again to save power, which doesn't make sense. But I get into that when I do my Star Trek podcast, which will launch at some point. So that's my favorite Star Trek captain. Number 9. If you were to live in the time of The Expanse, what job would you want? Where would you live? Now, there are many shitty jobs in The Expanse, and not so many good ones. If you live on Earth, you're happy to have a job. So I think I would want Holden's job. I would want to have my own ship, my own gunship, preferably. And that's where I would live. It would probably take some adjusting to live on a spaceship. I think in real life I wouldn't be a good astronaut. I would puke way too much and probably never get used to it. But that's, I think, what I would do if I was in the Expanse. If I couldn't choose, I'd probably just be a belter living on some rock someplace. Or I would be like maybe they have their media is very much like podcasting has taken over, and everybody has their own feeds, is what they call it, which I like about that. I like that about The Expanse. Maybe I would just be a journalist in air quotes, whatever a journalist is back in the future, but basically just a podcaster. And I would rant. I'd be a belter and rant about the oppression of Mars and Earth and Avasarala, the old bitch. All the time. Number 10. Do you still talk to Dan from Linux Outlaws? Now, I have to preface this a bit, because you have to understand that if you do a podcast with somebody, like I did with Dan for 7 years, you have a very special relationship. You are friends, but you're also not talking as much with them off the podcast than you would be if they just were your mate. And I'm not the only one. If you listen to podcasters, sometimes if they talk shop about how they do their show, and it's a show with like especially 2 people, this will come up. I think Adam Curry and John C. Dvorak are like this. They're even straight. I think they don't even talk off the air. I did talk with Dan. Usually we just over social media, right, over Twitter, or back in the day on Identica, we would just talk to each other. But like even when we were doing the show, someone could say at the best of times, we weren't talking much because we would prefer to talk on the show. That's why we did the show. And ever since we stopped doing the podcast, we talk even less. It's not because we don't like each other. It's just, I think our life situations, when we stopped the show, I was getting very, very, very busy at work, and I had very little time to do anything. I think Dan himself has had, he had serious health issues for a while, and still has health issues. I think he's blogging about this once in a while, and he's just like, we just didn't talk much more. It's not that we just had a falling out or anything. It was just like, an aspect of this is probably also, if I think about it, because we would just talk on social media, on Twitter and whatever, identicarstatus.net. And because that whole ecosystem has changed so much, and there's a lot more shouting going on and a lot more discussions and less just like friendly hanging out, that has gone away, I think, for both of us. And so that's, but once in a while, I tend to hit him up. Of course, it was kind of special last year as well, with shit going on, and it's always. But yes, so the answer would be yes. I still talk to Dan, but we always talked less off the air than you would probably expect. Question 11, so halfway now. What's your favorite free and open source software? Now, if I look at, it's things come and go. But if I looked at what over the last 20 years, maybe I've been using open source software, I've been using the most, and it's Git. Git, I use Git every day. I'm not a programmer. I use it for my writing, to track changes, and and to be able to roll back things. I do use it for other projects, for the websites I'm doing, for this show, for my own website, fab.industries. And so it would probably be Git. It's funny because favorite implies that you really like using it, and Git is just the thing that I use. It's just a tool, right? It's not one that I get a lot of joy out of, because that's not what it's for. So I don't know what that. I mean, one of the tools I've been recently using a lot, which is a great open source tool, is OBS, Open Broadcasting System, which is open source, which is the best software to do streaming, period, and that is great. So yeah, but I think it would be Git. Honorary mention, of course, to Linux, because I use Linux a lot. And it's the base for a lot of other things I do, a lot of other open source software I use, and I mean, Linux is Linux. It's not so much a tool or anything. It's more like it's a phenomenon, really. What Linux has done, not only to the operating system space, but also just to open source in general, cannot be understated. So pretty much anything that Linus Torvalds ever did, Git and Linux, my favorite open source tools. What's your number 12? What's your favorite controversy / news in this area? So open source. This could be from LO time or since. That is just, I covered so much news in my day. I mean, probably this is later, right? So probably IBM buying Red Hat. Just I have many friends who work at Red Hat or are tangentially connected to Red Hat. Just seeing what that did to their brains, because they didn't know. They kept this like secret from high people within Red Hat, as far as I can understand. Like, a lot of people didn't know, and when that news came out, they were just like, for a few days, I was texting with a lot of people, you could tell like their brains were completely scrambled. That was fun. But favorite. I mean, it's when he was still doing it, Linus just shouting at people, famously insulting NVIDIA developers. OpenBSD developers. He always spoke from my heart. I like him for that. I understand that he's not doing this anymore in this cancel culture age, but I've always respected him for just yelling at people. So I love that. Question 13. What is your favorite non-digital game? That's an easy answer, Magic the Gathering. I mean, that's also a digital game, but it's first of a non-digital game. I love that game. I mean, I don't play non-digital games a lot because I'm a nerd and I stay at home, which has nothing to do with the pandemic. I just stay at home anyway, and I've always done that. And I play many more. I play games digitally, like over the internet with people generally. But honorary mention to Diplomacy, which I haven't played in a long time. Used to play back in the day. I love that game. That's very, like, if you're interested in history, politics, you study politics, that's a favorite game for you. It's very, very hard to get a game going. It's a very long game, and people will get insulted, and will. I've seen friendships break over this game. I think everybody has who plays it. But it is, yeah, I mean, that's one of the factors that just shows you how good of a game it is. But it has to be Magic the Gathering. People keep saying this, and people keep saying that, but I think Magic the Gathering is the best game there is, just because it keeps changing every 3 months and still stays true to itself, and it's been doing that for like 25 years. So it's ridiculously good and also ridiculously frustrating sometimes. But that's what good games are. I feel are all like that, especially non-digital games. Question 14. Well, first of all, more coffee. There's coffee in that nebula. I'll just have to go. I have to reach more coffee. Question 14. Do you and Katie still play games together? And if so, what? Both digital and non-digital. So Katie's my wife. When we were students, we used to play World of Warcraft together in the same room, and then chat on in-game chat, like it's your turn to make coffee. Usually, no, we don't do this often, which mostly has to do with us being both very, very busy. Both working a lot and also having quite different sleep rhythms. She gets up early, works best in the morning, and goes to bed early. I get up very late, work best in the afternoon, and stay up late. So there is, in a normal day, we actually don't see each other that much, especially now that I'm just working from home and she's in the lab or in the hospital or whatever. So, and if we do, we usually don't play games together. We will watch movies or TV shows together, and we'll just spend time together, do things, cooking, I don't know, going somewhere, going shopping, walking someplace, these kind of things. So if digital games we've played, we did play Minecraft. We do play Minecraft now and again. And non-digital would probably be Cards Against Humanity. We both love that. Katie adores that game, and she loves it very much, which is interesting because people who only know me and know me from my my podcast think I'm the guy who's swearing a lot and extremely controversial. But Katie delights. This is probably why we like each other. She delights in this kind of thing as well. And also we have friends, like if we have friends and we stay friends with these people, so the kind of humor you develop together when you're playing Cards Against Humanity, like if people cannot stand that and they're offended, they will not stay our friends. I mean, just because of me and the things I say, if anything. But Katie also detests people like that. So we have good friends that where the guy in the relationship recently had a it's been, I think 2 years ago now, but had a diagnosis of bladder cancer, and he's just a bit older than me, which is like horrible. And he's going to do chemotherapy and that. And we were visiting them. We were playing Cards Against Humanity, and literally, like we like the first round we're playing. I think Katie had like the option to make a really, really good joke about cancer. And she didn't even like really think about it. She just made it. And we all of us, including him, nearly fell off our chairs laughing because it was a funny combination of cards, but it was so much more funny because he was going through it right now and it was so shit. And I mean, we were there to kind of distract him, but still, it was kind of like that was, and we love the people who stay friends with us. They need to be able to have that kind of humor. So we play that. That's what we play with our friends, and probably the game we play together most. Usually when friends come over, we'll play a few rounds. Cards Against Humanity. We've got some, all these extensions. It's really funny. Sometimes I have to explain the nerdier bits, explain to people who Elon Musk is or whatever. But yeah. If Yevgeny Kuznetsov in Twitch chat, I'm recording this live on Twitch, of course, as I do these days, says, happy anniversary, man. Had to register on Twitch today just to say this. Yevgeny, I appreciate it. Thank you very much. That is awesome. Real Funky Duck says, I can't speak for all fellow cancer survivors, but it's a relief when people don't get all awkward about it. Yeah, so this is what we do, right? It's shit, but also Katie works in a hospital. This is also where my my stance on COVID comes from, which is, I feel like, more realistic than other people's, but also like offends people. Because we tend to, lots of our friends are biologists and doctors and stuff. And people like that are just more realistic about these things, right? We all get diseases, and some of them are horrible, and we all die at some point, and some of us die earlier than later, and it just doesn't help if you're just if you're pushing that away, right? If you're trying to ignore that. It also doesn't help if you just go, oh, everybody feels like, if everybody just says, oh, I feel so bad for you, which is like, no, you really don't. Actually, you are happy that you don't have this terrible disease. And if you can say that, and your friends, you can acknowledge that, that's human nature, right? There's nothing bad. That's just how people feel. And if you admit it, it just gets better. So yeah. But suffice it to say, when we have friends over there, if somebody was going to listen in on the conversation, sometimes some people would be very, very, very shocked. Probably not you guys listen to this podcast because you know me a little bit and the things I say, but yeah. Yevgeny says, I'm a longtime fan. I know you've been there practically forever. I appreciate it very much. Anyway, let's move on. So that was question 14. Let's move on to 15. How did you get involved in starting OggCamp? Now that's pretty easy, and there's a story a lot of people know, and we talked about on LO. When we were doing Linux Outlaws, at the time, the most listened to Linux podcast in the world was a podcast called Lug Radio from the UK, and then obviously my co-host being based in the UK. We were both listening to it, and they had this live show, Lug Radio Live. And we would go there. And I think we went to one. And I think this was like Radio 2009. And I think they announced that year that the next one would be the last one. And so after the show, we got together because people were like really sad that this event was going to end. And we got together with the guys from back in the day. It was called the Ubuntu UK podcast. I think now it's just called the Ubuntu podcast. And so Linux Outlaws and Ubuntu UK were both like the up and coming podcasts. I mean, there was also Linux Action Show, but we were like the European contingent, right? And we were interested in keeping the event alive, but neither of us said like we can do it that on our own. So we pulled resources and decided that next year, when Lug Radio, it was always like a 2-day event, and they said they're just going to do a 1-day event. and we did the first OC camp on the day afterwards. Also in Wolverhampton, because Luck Radio Live was always in Wolverhampton, in the middle of nowhere, in the Midlands in the UK, because that's where the guys were from. And so we tacked our event on, and we said to minimize they organized everything. They had all this all this shit they had to do. And we were like, we can't really do that. What we're going to do is we're going to make it more of a bar camp style event, which these were just starting up back then as well. And that became OC Camp. One of the things I came up with the name. Just like CT Uplink, the podcast. Everybody hated the name at first. It's just like CT Uplink, and then nobody could think of a better idea. And thus OC Camp was born. And then I can quickly also answer question 16. Do you plan to attend in future when they start back up again? Of course I do. I was at the last OC Camp 2019. Before the pandemic hit, and the OC Camp 2020 of course didn't happen. I didn't go for quite a while because I was just too busy. I was so busy, and I was basically I was working at Heise, and I was covering open source. And to go to OC Camp, first of all, I would have had to pay for the flight and everything, but I did that before as well. But basically I would have taken time off, and I didn't have limited free time. Subtracting. So if you subtract like the holidays when you go to your parents, right? I had limited free time to go on holiday with Katie, and then also limited money to pay for flights. And at some point I was like, I can't do this anymore. I can't like take time off and go to an event that I would usually be paid to go to and cover, and do that on my free time, and have that subtracted from the holidays I can have with my wife. That's the only reason I ever stopped going. And then, when I became a freelancer and more time available, I was like, yeah, I'm going to go to OC Camp again. I was planning to go to every other OC Camp, and then, every next OC Camp, and then the pandemic hit. So if they started back up again, and if I'm able to go there, like, without, we'll have to see. Like, if it's in the UK, and the UK is becoming more of a police state than it has ever been, and you'll be, like, force vaccinated at the border, I'll think about it. Right? If I get vaccinated against this, I will do that on my own free will, and we'll see. We'll see. But I plan to attend the next one. Now, question 17. Oh, this is going to be a hard one. Who was your favorite teacher and why? I'll have to preface this with the saying that I did not enjoy my time in school. I learned a lot there, but I was always like, first of all, I was a troublemaker. So I tend to disagree with the teachers. What a surprise, right? I was like this ever since I was a kid. It's like my parents raised me this way. So I was never really popular with most teachers. Even though I think I was pretty intelligent, I was probably always like in the top level of my class. Not so much also with the... Like my grades tended to lag behind sometimes, but mostly because I disagreed with the teacher. Hit the shock button, says Real Funky Duck, and it's completely right. I tended to disagree with teachers. So that's also why my grades. I can remember I was in my final year in high school when you're preparing for this Abitur, it's called in Germany, like your high school diploma. And, I came back from Australia. I'm usually a pretty humble guy. I'm not kind of praising myself much, but I was definitely a lot better than any other person in my class in English. Like in some areas I was better than the teacher. And we had this... So I'm writing in this final year, right? I'm writing my first test in English. And I get it back from my English teacher, and she's, I had to laugh. In hindsight, I have to laugh because it's so much data. Data in Star Trek doesn't use contractions. And she was like, if you're writing a test, if you submit like writing in school, you can't use contractions like don't, you'd, you'll. Like that is against the rules, right? And I'm like, I take the test. I'm like, we have to talk about this, right? And I think it escalated so much that actually my parents had to come to school. We had to have this council, and we were like talking with people. I'm just back from Australia. I came back from Australia a year ago, whatever, a year and a half ago. And I'm like, in Australia, I finished my Australian high school diploma. I have a Queensland certificate of education, whatever the equivalent was back then, right? And I had like I think I had an A- or like equivalent to a B+ in English, right? In Australia. And I'm like, I've written a final exam in Australia in English and used contractions there, and they didn't mark that up as a mistake. And you're telling me this is a mistake in your eyes. And I basically said, you're an idiot. And I think she knew she was wrong, but it's like one of the teacher things where you then have to stick to your, and my parents, they were going nuts as well. They were both teachers, and it's just like, so I got marked down a lot after that in English. And actually, I think I have a B, or maybe even a B- in English in my final. I was so much better than everybody else. It's unbelievable. I think I was better than the teacher, but what can you do? So I had a rough time in school. I was bullied mercilessly. So I before I went to Australia, so I went in year, we had 13 years in high school, 13 years of school in Germany back then. And in year 11, I went for a year to Australia. And all the years before that were just rough. And like, one of the reasons I like Star Trek is because after school I would go home, I would quickly do all my homework, and then I would just watch Star Trek and forget the rest and like pretend I live on a starship. I'd stay at my grandmother's because my parents were working, and I would watch Star Trek. And so I had a really tough time in school. When I came back from Australia, I basically found myself in Australia. I found my self-esteem. And nobody could do anything to me then, because I had a really good year, and I knew the problem wasn't me. The problem was other people, and I knew how to respond to other people. And I was just basically just flipping the bird to the people who were bullying me, and nobody could touch me anymore. But yeah, so I don't know. I did have a good German teacher, Herr Tenter, who encouraged me and encouraged my writing. And that's probably one of the reasons why I am a writer right now. My first English teacher, Herr Caesar, Mr. Caesar, was very strict, and I don't think I really liked him back then, but this is one of the hindsight things. I think he laid the groundwork to me being able to speak English as well, and developing a love for the language at some point. Whereas my first French teacher never managed to, so I was never good at French. So I think I owe him a lot. But my favorite teacher in high school was actually, so I'm going all the German teachers here, because that's kind of my school. I'll have to do a separate section for Australia in a bit. But my favorite teacher in school was probably, I didn't even have him as a teacher because I'm not baptized. And in German schools, you either have Catholic religious education or Protestant, or you can opt out. You can opt out. Like in high school, your kid can opt out if the parents want that. And I was opted out because I'm not a religious person. But there was a religion teacher who also taught history, which my wife had him in history. She hated the guy. I loved him. He was amazing. So I went in high school. I went on after I came back from Australia. He always organized these trips like with students, and I wasn't a student, but other people could go too. I always went with him and on like these trips, and he was the most amazing guy. He was so funny. I think he was very, very quirky, really weird guy, but he had an historical knowledge. I mean, it was always tinted like with a religious view. He knew a lot about the Middle Ages, and that was kind of a special thing. Hildegard von Bingen. He loved Hildegard von Bingen. But he was such a funny guy. So we'd go like on these excursions to Bavaria and like look at abbeys and stuff. We went to this abbey where The Name of the Rose was filmed and stuff like that. And he would always try to scam himself in for free. He would always go like, I'm a teacher, these are my students, please let us go. And then he would get in for free, and then he would even scam the cafeteria out of like giving us all free food. So amazing. I remember this one abbey where he couldn't manage to get us in for free. They just wanted to give him rebated tickets, and he was like, no, I'm gonna get in for free. And we left, and we went around the grounds of the abbey until he found they were doing like renovation work. And so we went through the building site and into there was like a hole in the wall where they were repairing the wall. We went in, and then we were in there, right? We went in there, and then you could go where everybody else was, where you had to pay, right? And we were just in there for free and following the people around and giving tours. And then at the end, we just went out the exit. Oh, he was such a freaky guy. He would always he was a Catholic. He taught Catholic religion. He had a disdain for Protestants. He would always knock their churches and oh, you could tell this. So you can't tell this is a Protestant church because Protestant churches look like shit, except of course the ones they stole from the Catholics back in the with Luther and the whole thing. So this one you can tell this is actually a good looking Protestant church because this one used to be Catholic. And he would always his name was Rickers, Herr Rickers, Mr. Rickers. He would always go, we'd be in this church, and there was this pamphlets and things you could fill out on the altar, right? And he was stealing a pen, and then somebody said, Mr. Rickers, you can't steal a pen in a church. You're like a religion teacher. What are you doing? He's like, this is a Protestant church. I can do whatever I want. It just doesn't count. God doesn't care. You don't steal anything in a Catholic church. But these guys, they believe the whole. He was so funny. He had this old Golf Series 4 model. And he would, on the Autobahn, when you drove up a hill, right? He'd drive up the hill, and then at the top of the hill, he would turn the engine off to save petrol, and then roll for 2 kilometers on the German Autobahn. And the car would get slower and slower. And he would do this, when it was getting dark, right? And the lights were turning off. And we were like, you can't do this. You're not allowed to do it. And the power steering would go off, and the brake assist would be off because the key was just rolling down. The guy was so funny. He was probably my favorite teacher. But, all of my really favorite teachers were in Australia. I had a hell of a time in Australia in school. I loved all my teachers. I went to James Nash State High School in Gympie. Truth more precious than gold. School motto. For a year. I loved all my teachers there. They were amazing. They just taught me everything. They taught me how to be confident in myself, how to give public speeches. Is probably the reason why I can do podcasts now. They were just amazing. I mean, I even loved phys ed, physical education, which I was never a fan of. I even loved trying to play cricket. We played golf because the golf course was next door. The school was just next door to a golf course, so we had golf in phys ed. I had a really good biology teacher, even though I had to cut open a rat and really didn't like that. But she was great. They were all amazing. So there's this time when, my host mother. So I had this offer to go to Longreach, which is in the middle of nowhere. So in Queensland is a huge state in Australia where everybody lives on the coast. And if you're a tourist, you go up the coast, right? And Gympie is at Brisbane, then you go north and go past Gympie. Bruce Highway number 1, up the coast. This is where everybody goes. And then if you go at, I think, you reach Rockhampton, and you go. You just go inland pretty much as far as you can in this huge state. There's a town called Longreach, which is in the middle of nowhere. It's really hot there, and it's ridiculously out of place. And I had the ability to go there because my host mother was going there, but we'd be gone for 4 weeks, right? Go there, stay there with people, see the area, and then go back. And the drive even was took I don't know, days, in her old car. So she rang up the headmaster of the school and was like, okay, so, Fabian, Fab, our exchange student, and we have this, obviously we want him to see the country, and we have this this thing where we can go to Longreach. And she wasn't even finished asking him if I could go. He was like, sure, yeah, go. And I'm like, what? And he's like, no, it's much more important that you see the country and you meet people than you be like here in school for 4 weeks, right? And you're pretty smart. You can catch up on that. Like, it was so amazing. That is so different than a German high school headmaster. It is such a contrast. I was just like it blew my mind. I loved that school. That was good times. Anyway, I've spent a lot of time answering this question. So that was number 17. Let's lubricate my voice here a little bit more. Question number 18. If you had a time machine that could take you to any time and event in the past, where would you go and what would you see? Rules: you won't be able to change the course of history. Temporal directive. And you only have 30 minutes at the past event. So I'm really conflicted with that because I love history, right? I'm a history student. So I'm like, what would you want to see? Like, would you like to see a nice event, or like just an amazing event, or maybe just something that just changed the course of history? And there's so many things, like just stuff in the French Revolution, Napoleonic Wars, right? Probably a lot of this would probably be horrible. I don't know. See like one of these defining events in the Wild West. The shootout at the OK Corral, something like that. I don't know, right? If we're talking like, would you like to see it because it is nice, or just because it was like a defining event of things you care about in history? Like, there would be a significant question of like being there in a key moment in World War II, or when in the beer hall putsch, or when Hitler rose to power. But I think I'd have to be something with Bismarck. This is my favorite topic in history, and I admire the man a lot. And I think I would just choose one of his best speeches, and I would just like to sit, probably back then in the Prussian parliament, or in the Bundestag in Frankfurt, and just sit there and listen to him speak, because the guy is reported to be such a good public speaker that I'd love to see that. Yeah, I don't know. That's a really hard one. I don't even know if I can answer that. There's so many things I would want to see, and lots of those that take more than 30 minutes. Really hard to find actual 30 minutes that you'd want to see. Maybe Armstrong putting his foot on the moon. That would be nice, especially if you could actually be there, right? If you're like uncorporeal or something, you could just stand on the moon without a spacesuit, or with a spacesuit, but or just the landing, just witness the landing. That would be amazing. I cried when this Apollo 11 movie, this documentary. I watched that in the cinema like a year ago, 2 years ago. That was 2 years ago. I think that was such a great movie. I cried. Real Funky Duck, you can possess Buzz Aldrin. Yeah, that would be great. But it'd also be great to possess like maybe Armstrong. It's just Buzz Aldrin is the one you would want to see. Like, he's the guy you would want to see in action. He's the real hero. He's just a kick-ass dude. Right. Number 19. Would you ever go back to school, as in uni, college, business school, like to the Danish School of Media and Journalism? I think Mike asked this question. Why or why not? Bonus question: can real journalism really be taught? So I think there are several questions in here. The first question is, would you ever go back to school? I would want to. Like, I would love to go back to university and just have some more history lessons with some great historian. But that would basically presuppose that it would be like in my time when I was at university. I would just love to spend more time there. I don't really like today's university, the way they changed the system, that you have a very strict curriculum. It's much more like in the US. I would love to be back in the day when I was studying history, and you just have these history professors, and they would just espouse wisdom, right? I wouldn't care if you actually wrote anything down, if you actually, if you failed your exams, that you just failed, right? You were out there. They didn't care. They just wanted to stand there and expose wisdom and discuss stuff with people. Was a very different time when you could still say things and not be like canceled. So that's the first part of the question. I would never go to J school, and I don't think, as Mike puts it, real journalism can be taught. I think journalism schools are bullshit. I think, look, if you ask me, journalism is a craft. It is very much like being an engineer, or pretty much being like a somebody who works with their hand. You learn this on the job, and you can best learn this on the job. It is something to learn it at university, and then you go to work at your first newspaper, and you're just overwhelmed by the amount of text you have to write, the amount of people yelling at you from all directions. Your editor is saying this, your reader saying the other thing, and then something happens and the world goes crazy, and you have to cover it. And that is something that you can't learn in university. You have to be there. And my time at the Age, my first job as a journalist, was perfect for that. I was completely helpless in a different city with people I didn't know. I'd applied over the internet. I had like this strict editor-in-chief who would throw things at me, but also was a really fun guy. He'd buy a Nerf gun and shoot at us, and then we'd all like buy Nerf guns and shoot back, and it was just hilarious. And I learned so much. That you can't learn this kind of shit. You learn that under pressure. You don't learn that in university. And I think I'm not saying you shouldn't go to university if you want to become a journalist. I think that is essential. I think you have to go to university, do something else. I studied history, politics, and English. Something. You can do biology, you can do math, does physics, doesn't matter. Do something. Engineering. Just learn about the subject you want to write about later and get knowledge. That is the important thing. You need knowledge. You need to know, if you want to write about something, you can write about it best if you. So to be a good journalist, let's say you want to write about computers. So if you'd studied information technology or whatever, like informatics called in Germany, like some IT thing, right? If you're a programmer, if you learn to be a programmer, you want to write about that, that's perfect because you know almost as much about it, the topic, as the people who are doing it. And that is critical. And if you don't have that from university, then you have to learn that. Like you'll have to, aside from learning how to be a journalist, you'll have to get that knowledge at the same time, which is hard, which I've done with security, for example. Right, I've had to like kind of get all the knowledge there on the side, and you can do it, but it's better if you have a head start. So that's good. You'll of course have to have a knack for writing, which is, I feel like something you also can't really learn. I mean, you can learn all the techniques, but that still doesn't mean that you're going to be a good writer, right? So, for example, I know a lot of journalists. I have a lot of journalists who went to J school, and there are people who went to university and went to journalism school, and they learned writing at university, right? And then they sit somewhere and they have writer's block. I haven't had writer's block ever, right? Maybe back in school, but ever since I've become a professional, I haven't had writer's block. And one of the reasons is, like, my first job, I was thrown into a shark pit and people yelled at me to write, and you just had to write. You just couldn't sit there and say, oh, I don't know how to begin this. You just start, right? And you can learn everything. You can learn all the techniques, and if you still sit there and get writer's block, you're shit, right? Or you can just copy. You can copy all these techniques and styles and never develop your own style. It's kind of like learning painting and just, perfectly copying, I don't know, Picasso's style or Bob Ross's style or whatever, but never having any real intuition about it and any real how would you, what's the word I'm looking for? Your own putting your own persona in it. So then you have to have that, and I don't think you can learn that. You can discover that you have it, I feel. So I don't think you can teach that. I think also one thing you need to learn critically at university is, well, to think critically and to learn how science works. You need to know. So I learned this in history and politics, which is like you usually don't learn that there. It's humanities, you don't learn. Like if you study biology or physics, you will learn how science works because you will do it, right? You will write research papers, and you will learn how they're published. You need to know that, and that is not taught at J school. I don't know a single journalist, and I know quite a lot. Like from everybody I know, no personally, no by acquaintance or whatever. Who's learned how they all don't understand how science works if they went to J school. They don't understand how papers are published, how scientific consensus is built, what it means. That's all the stuff I always rant about on this show. So I don't think you can learn that at J school. That's not to say that maybe in the future there will be a courses at university that where you could learn this. But it has to be. It would have to be something like that. Have to teach you the right thing, and then you'd have to have a practical program. If you go to university and become a doctor, right? You learn all this shit, and then you go for a year and you work at a hospital, and you go through go to every single station in the hospital, every single ward, and you just gather experience as a doctor. And only then can you graduate. And it would have to be something like that in this journalism. I don't understand how you can graduate as a journalist and you've never worked at like a newspaper, at a magazine, or at not for at least a year or something like that. I don't understand that. So I don't know. The answer is no. No, real journalism it can never be taught in a university in this style, right? In this passive style, you'd have to do it. It's more a craft than an art form, I would say. 20. You get to do just one of any of your current or past podcasts, video logs, newsletters, or blogs. It will pay for your living, but you can only do that thing for the rest of your professional career. Which one do you choose, and why is it Geek News Radio? No, I'm kidding. You must make and explain your choice without my influencing you. I think that was Mike as well. I would not want this to happen. The biggest reason why I quit my job and my secure employment on my own, to the amazement of many of my colleagues, is that I do not want this to happen. I realized I want the freedom in my life to do what I think is important. That's why we stopped doing Linux Outlaws, not because we fell out or not because of any other reason. We both wanted to move on. Dan wanted to move on, and we got bored by the topic. And Geek News Radio is a different reason. That show stopped because it was just hard to organize, to get co-hosts on, and I just realized if I do my own podcast on my own, it's a lot easier for me. It's more work, but it's also easier for me to get it done, right? To schedule, it's just my schedule I have to look after, So I would not want to do a thing for the rest of my life, even if it paid me well. I specifically do not want to do that. So I'd have to hack the answer to this question and say, it would probably be my blog or like my newsletter, because it would have to be something that I could change in the next like decades to my tastes, like something that is not like The Private Citizen, which is a show about, technology, privacy, politics. Like if I ever get bored of that, I'll stop doing it. That's the whole idea. I don't want to be forced to do something that I don't want to do just to make money. I don't want to do that. I could presumably get into a situation like this in the future, but I do not want to. You see that a lot with especially like YouTubers or whatever. They get like this this niche, and they are very successful all of a sudden, and then they make a lot of money, maybe even millions of euros. But at some point, you can see they'll have to keep doing it to make that money, but their heart's not in it really anymore. They would love to do something else. Sometimes they try and then they fail, and they always have to go back to that one channel, and it kills your soul. And that's, I think, also what makes people burn out. I've never burned out. I'm not a guy, I think, who gets burnt out. I work too much, and I sometimes work in ways that is too much, that is unhealthy. But I don't get burned out, because if there was something I was doing that was burning me out, I would just quit. Just how I quit my job. I think people would have gotten burned out in that if they just stayed. Like not done what I done, but like stayed because they wanted that safe employment and that save money. But then at some point they get burned out, and I think I just quit before I burn out on something. I quit it, I stop it. That's why I do so many things. That's why I throw things at the wall, try newsletters, try different podcasts, and I like to keep moving. I like to keep. Probably the main reason why I love to be a journalist is that no other job in the world gives you the chance to look at new stuff every day, to learn new stuff. And you have to. You will be a shit journalist if you just sit there and you just I've seen that so much. Like, I'm the Linux guy for this magazine, and I'll stay that for the next 30 years. And I'll do basically the same article over and over and over again. That is death. That is soul death to me. That is hell. That's literally the definition of hell. I'd rather have tea with Hitler in a bath of lava every day than just doing that same job every day and writing the same article every week again and again and again and again. That is horrible. So yeah, I'm not doing that. So I'll have to hack it and pick something that will give me the ability to do whatever I want, which probably would have been Geek News Radio. That was kind of that podcast, but that would also mean I'd have to get other. That was always, I wanted that to be a roundtable show. Never really worked out, but that project has failed. It was fun, but structurally that project just failed. So it's probably not going to be Geek News Radio. So probably would be my newsletter, which would have a chance maybe of at some point making myself money, and then I would just set it up in a way that I can just write about whatever I want, and I can do that to the end of my days. Because then I can just keep moving and learn new things, right? Work myself into new topics every time. Find new things I'm interested about. That's what I want to do for the rest of my life. And I'm not one of these guys who will retire at some point. I feel like I'm one of these typical journalists who loves being a journalist and will keep doing that, right? If I'd had stayed at a publishing company, and I'd then retired with 65 years, as is normal in Germany, I would have kept writing, right, on my blog or whatever. And I will do that, I feel. I'll be like John C. Dvorak, who's just quit all his jobs and now doing a podcast, but he's still writing. And how old is Dvorak now? I have to look this up now. Don't want to miss. What's the word I'm looking for? And don't want to say any wrong things about him. He was born in 1953. 1952. So he's like either 69 or 68 or 69. Yeah, so I'd be like that. I'd be like basically retired but still working. That's pretty much, I think, what I'll do. I'll be writing until the day I keel over. Whenever that is. Might be much earlier than Dvorak. Okay, 2 questions left. Question 21. Which news scoop are you most proud of? I never really had any. I'm not like one of those journalists. Right? Either, so to get a real scoop, you either have to be lucky, or you have to be known for already having had a scoop, and then you're known, and then people give you that information. I think it's a myth that it happens because you just do you're really good at your job. Although, there are, I mean, Snowden picked Greenwald because he liked his writing and he'd been writing for years about these topics. So sometimes it's not luck, it comes to you because of your work. And that might happen to me at one point when I'm really, really lucky, but I'm not like one of these scoop guys. I'm a guy who, like, my thing is, maybe I'm not the first to write about something. Seldom am. Never really. I am. I'm somebody who looks at things other people write and then sits down and thinks about this and does better research and then writes it properly. I'm proud about the fact that I wrote the first. So I was a few months at Heise writing for CT, Europe's biggest IT magazine, and the first real story I did was a cover story explaining what Bitcoin was in 2013. So I'm proud of that, getting that done, even though I'd never done print journalism before, never really worked with these people before. That was great. In my time as freelancer, just like writing that one-off column on my blog, which changed the tax. Is now changing the tax software in Germany because Katie had complained to me that she does our taxes and she's referred to as the man because the person filing the taxes always assumed to be a man, and I've just off the cuff ranted about this in my Sunday column, and it got picked up by like 36 different newspapers and publications all over Germany. I got in the news, and then now they're changing the tax forms because of that. That was pretty cool. But, it's not really, it's really scoop. I don't know if I will ever have a scoop, and I can live with that. My goal as a journalist is to follow my own inner, the standards I set for myself and that I expect of others, and that's why I often rant about other journalists. To follow them as best as I can. We all make mistakes. We can never completely live up to our goals or our standards, but my goal is to live up to that as much as I can. And it's also a big reason why I quit my job back in the day, because I thought I can better do this on my own. And with that, I think we come to the last question 22, which is kind of a follow-up on this one. Have you ever received any information or whistleblowing material that you had to drop and not report on? If so, how difficult a decision was it? Personally, never. If somebody leaked something to me, I always made it into a story. Sometimes I didn't do it myself. Sometimes a colleague was better placed to do that, and I handed it off to somebody else. So there are probably some scoops that basically were my scoops because I had the thing first, but another colleague actually wrote the thing. And you have to be okay with that. Sometimes it's just another person is just better placed to do this. No, I always find a way. I think there is always a way. There was a story when I was working at Heise Online. A colleague of mine had a good idea to do a story, and I had really nothing to do with it. They had a great idea for a story. They researched it. They found a great person to talk to, basically a whistleblower, and it would have been a great story. And it was to do with basically counterfeit credit cards. The way criminals carding. It's called carding. How they copy cards, how they use them, how they get money of it. It's a fascinating story. And they had what looked like a real whistleblower from, let's air quotes, the industry, basically organized crime, who was gonna talk to us. And they killed that story because they were afraid of the consequences, because you're dealing with actual criminals and, probably the mafia. And they were afraid, the guy who had the idea, who was going to write it, was like, no, I have a family, I can do this. And I think our editor-in-chief kind of dropped the story because he didn't want to do it himself, and he was out of respect of the guy was saying, no, I can't. I won't do it either. And I offered to do the story. Right? I did. I said, I think I'm happy to do this. I'll have to talk to my wife, which was a 2-second messenger conversation. It was like, look, this is the situation. I could do this story. It might be dangerous for us. Would you mind? To which my wife replied, no, go for it. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to do this. But they didn't want to do it either. And that was painful. That was hard. I think that would have been a great story. I think that would have been a scoop. It would have been an amazing story. That would have probably hit to an international audience. And I don't think the risk was that high. And I think if you're a self-respecting journalist, it's part of the job to take that risk. I understand if people don't want to do that, right? If they're like, I have a family, I have children. The one guy we're talking about just had a kid. I don't fault anybody to like not do that, but you have to hand it off then to somebody, and somebody has to do the fucking story. And I think if you're a self-respecting journalist, you say the risk be damned. This is part of it, right? If you're, I don't know, is there any equivalent in a job? Let's say you're a pilot, right? You're living with risk anyway. But you're like just a normal airline pilot, right? But there's something where you're a really good pilot, and then they go like, oh, we need you. And it's not realistic. It's like a movie script, right? But there's like they're fighting a huge wildfire, and they need people to fly these planes, and it's dangerous, and they're like, you're a really good pilot, do it. I'm a pilot, and if I'm a pilot, I'm living to be a pilot. I just like, yes, of course it's risky, but I mean, that's kind of what we do, and yes, of course I'm going to do it. Or let's say you're the best. We figure out you're the best pilot. You'll have to pilot the space shuttle. Now, of course it's dangerous, but wouldn't you do it? Like if your love for flying is then like the space shuttle, the ultimate thing you could fly. I'm still a bit bitter about that, and it's just like that happened so long ago, like that when I quit the company, I was presumably could have contacted the guy myself, but like that was so long ago, we lost all trace of the guy, so like I couldn't do that story. I would have loved to do that story. And lived with the consequences. I don't think the danger was that high, and if it was, come get me, Molon Labe, you motherfuckers. We got Mike, who's supplied some of these questions, who is now in Discord, not in Discord, I'm sorry, in Twitch chat, and is saying, sorry, I'm just checking in and kind of lurking because I'm working. But it seems I'm late anyway. Look forward to hearing the full show. Happy anniversary. Thank you, Mike. I'm very happy about it. I'm just through. I answered all 22 questions, and I think I spent quite a lot of them. I answered relatively in depth. So you knew. I failed to introduce myself at the very beginning of the show, but if you've been listening to this podcast, you now know a lot more about Fab. I mean, some of this, if you listen to Linux Outlaws, I've talked about a lot of these things probably on other podcasts. Geek News Radio as well, the best podcast. Here it is in one place, and that will be it for AMA. I don't know what I'm doing, like, a year. If a year from now, if the podcast still exists, we might do this again. So if you have any more questions in this vein, note them down, or through the year if they occur to you. Know that this might be a possibility that we're doing this again. This might become a fixture every year. I'll do an anniversary show. It's always something you have to do for an anniversary show. I think this is not a bad idea. And write it down. Keep it in a notebook or somewhere in a text file, and when I bring it up next year, you can ask it. You can go ask that question. So I hope this was interesting for everybody. This was more navel gazing than I'm usually used to. Let me know, right? Contact details are in the show notes, privatecitizen.press. Let me know what you thought of this. The thing that I just came up with relatively quickly when I thought, it might be fun to do an anniversary show. Okay, let's wrap this thing up. I've been boring you to death about my life for long enough. So we won't have any feedback today, of course, because this was kind of feedback, and the other show was just 2 days ago, and also doesn't really fit. But contact me. Contact details on the site privatecitizen.press. Speaking of contact details, there's also details about an IRC channel in there, and Evgeny just asked. I've been meaning to ask, did you pull the plug on the IRC channel? I thought I'd congratulate there, but you weren't online, so I ended up registering here. I'm sorry, Evgeny. This occurred to me yesterday. So I have a session on a server that's logged in there, and I've been very, very busy recently, just writing stuff, and I've had a lot of deadlines. I've been writing print stories again and print deadlines, which. Pain in the butt. I was just doing a lot. I completely forgot about the IRC channel for a few weeks, and I think that server session has crashed. I haven't had time to log into the server and see, but I was this occurred to me because there's something else on the server running on the server, and a few days ago I got a message that something had happened, and then I was like, oh, isn't the IRC session running on there? I'll have to check. No, I didn't pull the plug on the IRC channel. I wasn't active there for a while. That was not by choice. But, sometimes I have so much things running at the same time. I try so many things. The downside sometimes is that I have limited time in the day. I'm spending pretty much these days. Maybe it's something very quickly worth addressing. I had a thought of another idea for this episode. Could have been a day in the life of Fab. I think I'm going to write a blog post about that one time. But a general day for me, right, looks like this. My wife gets up early. I usually sleep in. My alarm usually goes at 9. I wake up. The first thing I do is I walk, go to the toilet, of course. Then I go to my desk. I sit down. I turn my PC on, and I start doing things. I read stuff. Sometimes I play video games. Sometimes Magic. I need to wake up, right? Then I get myself a coffee, and then I start working. I usually work 2 hours or something, 2-3 hours before I even eat something. And then I eat breakfast usually really late. I work. And then, I usually, at 3-4 in the afternoon, I'll stop. And I go for a run or something, do some exercise. Sometimes I have to go shopping. Then often I'll cook myself something. And then it's 5, 6 around that time. And sometimes with cooking, I'm only done at 7, something like that. And then my wife comes home. Sometimes we eat something together. We talk a little bit. And this varies. I don't go running every day, and I don't have to go shopping every day. But there's this area where I have to go out or go running or whatever. And then I don't cook myself something every day either. Sometimes I cook for more than one day. Sometimes I order some stuff in. But anyway, but then I usually at 7 or something like this, I sit back down. After 2 or 3 hours of not having worked. And then I usually work till 2-3 at night, and then go to bed. And that's my day. So basically, aside from that time, from those 2-3 hours in the middle, and some days I do different stuff. Of course, some days I'm not at home all day or whatever. But yeah, I usually work the whole time. And of course, I'm a freelancer, and work for me. Sometimes I just, as I said, I don't really have writer's block, right? But I have this thing where I'm like, I've written a certain amount. It doesn't even have to be much. Maybe it was just hard to write. I wrote something and then I can't write anymore because I've already written something, and then I need to do the next thing, but I need a break. I need to reset my brain. And often I play like an hour of video games. I play like Magic the Gathering or play some Battletech or whatever. And completely reset my brain. Sometimes I play video games on the side. Sometimes I write, do bookkeeping, and play like Minecraft at the same time. Sometimes I watch some stuff on TV. I watch some, Netflix, Amazon. I watch some something on YouTube. I listen to a podcast or whatever. So it's not like working the whole time through. And also like some of my working is recording a podcast. Like right now, that's work to me. So it's not like, I don't want to say I'm like the hardest working guy in the world, but I work like a lot of the time in my days just working. And that's just to explain that sometimes that also means I have lots of things to do. I do lots of stuff, and sometimes I just forget about an ISC channel for a month. Right? Sometimes I don't answer my email for 3 days, and I'm like, oh shit, somebody offered me a job and I didn't take it because I'm an idiot. Happens. Hey, that's a little bonus here. That's kind of how my day works. Anyway, let's wrap this show up. I was saying I stopped talking about myself and wrap this up very quickly. The people who supplied these questions were either Twitch subscribers or Patreon subscribers. If you like this show and you want to keep it going, consider becoming a patron. You also can, a link is obviously on privatecitizen.press. You can also send one-off donations to, not really donations, contributions. They're not legally donations in Germany. To producers at fab.industries, via PayPal. Details also in the show notes. This is, as I said in the beginning, the value for value model, which basically means if you derive any value from this, think about how much, what that is. Like, what you spend on a coffee, what do you spend to see a movie, rent a movie these days, probably on a streaming service instead of going to a cinema, which nobody does anymore. But, that kind of stuff. Think about what you can afford. If you can't afford anything, it's okay. But if you do, it's appreciated, and you help to keep the show on the road. And I appreciate that a lot. And because people do that, I have to thank them now. But first off, just honorary mention to Raul Kabazali, who wrote the theme tune for this podcast, which I licensed for her. It's called Acoustic Roots. And I like it very much. So I would like to give him credit for that. And I have to thank Bytemark at bytemark.co.uk, a UK cloud hosting service, who provide 2 servers for me and have done since the Linux Outlaws days, which I use to send you these audio files. If you go and download the podcast, then that's where you get them from. And if I had to pay for that, this whole exercise would quickly collapse on itself. So thank you to Bytemark for helping me out with that. And now thanks to everybody who's monetarily supported me and kept the show on the road. And some of these people also asked questions that I answered today. So thank you to Niall Donegan, Michael Mullen Jensen, Jonathan M. Heavy, Georges, Dave, Butterbeans, Steve Hose, Mark Holland, Vlad, Shelby Kruver, Jackie Plage, 1i11G, Philipp Klostermann, Jaroslav Lichtblau, Kai Sears, Fadi Mansour, IKN, Dirk Didi, Matt Jellyman, Joe Poser, Michael Small, David Potter, Mika, Martin, Dave Umrish, Ricky M, Drive Zero, Mr. Amish, Jonathan Edwards, Barry Williams, Larry Glock, Bennett Piata, Avis, Neil, Matt, Captain Egghead, D, Christoph Martin, and Felipe Carvalho. Thanks to all of you. I appreciate it a lot. And then I have to say thanks. I stream this live on Twitch. Twitch TV/Foxtrot Alpha Bravo. I started doing this. I really like this. I like the live feedback I'm getting. And I stream other things on Twitch. And if you like what I'm doing, you can subscribe to the channel. This is a way, if you have Amazon Prime, if you're paying for Prime, you can basically do this for free because you are you have a thing. If you have Amazon Prime, you have a thing called Twitch. No, it's called Prime Gaming now, which includes one Twitch subscription, which you have to renew every month manually. but it's free to you, and the channel will get the money they'll get for the normal Twitch subscription. So you can do that if you want to support the show. And if you have Amazon Prime, it won't cost you anything. So thanks to my Twitch subscribers, which are Mike_the Dane, Jason Word with a 3, Galtaran, Redeemer F, Indie Gamiacs, and Andy Pants, with a 4. P4NTS, Andy Pants. Thanks to all of you. And that's it. That was the episode. This was the 1-year anniversary episode. I'm really happy to be here. I'm happy to have you guys and gals. When I say guys, I usually, it's gender non-specific, but I'm happy to have all of you who are supporting me, who are making this possible, who are allowing me to do this, which I love doing. I love my job. If I rant a lot, that doesn't mean I don't love it. I love doing this, and it's that what keeps me going every single day. So thanks again. Happy to have you. I hope I'll be here for a few more years with this show. I'll certainly will give my best, and I'm not running out of zeal or zest or whatever to do this. I'm still very interested in the topics we're covering. It's one of the reasons I changed the show around a bit. It's growing. It's over this year, over the first year, it's evolved, and I changed it a bit at the beginning of 2021. That's one of the reasons to keep it fresh for me and for you. I just don't want to rehash the same thing over and over again. It's not good for anybody. So yes, I will play you out today with a song called "Drinking You Off My Mind" by a band called Thera with a Y. Nice little modern country ditty, which I like very much. So I'll be doing that. I'll see you next week, for the regular Wednesday episode. I'm thinking. Until then, it is a wonderful journey we're on. I appreciate it very much. Thanks for listening, and thanks for being here. And I'll give my best, to defend your right to have something to hide. See you next week. Goodbye.
Wishing for the kind of love you see in magazines. The illusion falls and nothing's what it seems to be. The part left is hurting deep inside of me. Heard a whisper, someone saw you at the bar. Was it the same night you had trouble with your car? It's getting old, I've heard your stories told 1,000 times. Baby, you are using the same old lines. I'll leave it all behind. I wasted too much time, I've been blind. 'Cause there's no fixing what's been broken. This ain't the first time I'll be drinking you off my mind. Walking down the street, the rain is pouring down. By my feet I walk into a different sound. I'll leave the bitter taste of love, come back, I'm finally free. The mirror I can see a different me. I'll leave it all behind. I wasted too much time, I've been blind. 'Cause there's no fixing what's been broken. This ain't the first time I'll be drinking you off my mind. Love is gone, and there's no road leading us back home. This ain't the first time
There we go. Stop recording. Right. That's the 1 year anniversary episode in the can. Amazing. Still amazing to me that it's been a year. That year just went past very fast. That rhymes. Just a lot of stuff going on in that year. Thanks for watching, everybody. I appreciate it a lot. Thanks for chiming in and chat. Even though I couldn't respond as I, usually does during other streams. And I'll be stopping the stream here in a bit. But I'll rate you over to somebody who does something interesting on Twitch if that works. Hello, Mike. Let's see if we can find somebody. And if Twitch is playing ball, which is sometimes a problem these days, but I'll have to edit the show note and put it out, and then I'll have to do the one of the the chores I keep talking about. Gotta go shopping. Everything's empty. Is there anything going on here? Is there anybody doing anything interesting on Twitch right now? It's not the time where most people stream. Also, they're all German. That's probably not something for you. Nah, I don't think there's anybody streaming today. You'll have to find your own entertainment from here on out. I think I'll just stop the stream. Thanks for all the congratulations. It was fun. It's fun doing this show. And I'll see you. I don't know. I gotta work all weekend. FOSDEM is on, which is, of course, remote now, but I'm still covering it, so I'll work through the weekend. I'll probably have some stuff to write on Monday. I'll try to do Witcher stream as soon as possible. I don't think I'll manage on the weekend. If so, it'll have to be just ad hoc. I'll post it in Discord, of course, if I can manage it. I'm trying to plan Monday evening, but I'm not quite sure if I can get work done until then. So just keep an eye on fab.industries/stream and the Discord. I'll see what I can get doing. What, if Yevgeny, your daughter was born today? Wow, that is a coincidence. Well, congratulations to that. Very much. That's pretty cool. Wow. On the podcast anniversary. That is pretty amazing. I hope she's gonna be very healthy and gonna have a very happy life. And you guys, I hope, will get some sleep in the next few years. That could be interesting. But also maybe you need a lot of podcasts. I've actually had some podcast listeners in the past who've written me that they listen to podcasts while they just walk around rocking their baby to sleep and need a podcast to keep them sane. I think Mike knows is what he's talking about. He's raised one or two of these himself. So yes, congratulations, Yevgeny. That is amazing. Best wishes to Moscow over there. It's probably a lot colder than it is in Düsseldorf right now. Been there and done that. You got the t-shirt. Okay, guys. Gotta wrap it up. Gotta get this podcast out. Still have a lot of work to do today. Thanks for watching. I appreciate it a lot. And I'll see you as soon as possible with another stream. Let's see when I can make it happen. It's a bit touch and go at the moment. But that's how it goes. Sometimes as a freelancer. Take care, everybody. Goodbye. I have to find the right button. Here. Wait. I'm going like this. Which was the right button? Goodbye, everybody.